Welcome back to part two of Couture Embroidery, the Lesage Inspired flower. So this is what my partially completed flower now looks like that we've put in the petals. How's yours looking? Does it look similar? Does it look different? Doesn't matter. Every time I do this, you can see that this one is different to this one and different to this one. Some have more petals, some have less. It really does depend on the fabric and how it all comes out. So it's kind of like a surprise. It's always different for me. I use quite a lot of petals on this one, and I didn't use too much of the silk georgette. I actually preferred the look of the satin, so I only had a few petals. So hopefully you've got something that looks similar-ish, not exactly the same, but that you're happy with. And if you've got some rough edges around here, that's completely normal. Don't worry about it. We're going to finish it off with some covering to, soften those edges and make it all balanced out. So I did audition my scraps of satin because I'm loving this color of satin, and that's what inspired this whole sample. But I know from experience that the satin is probably not going to be able to be manipulated in a way that's going to give me the desired result. So every time I've done this, oops, let me check that one. Yeah, every time I've used the sheer. All right. So depending on what fabrics you've chosen, you can experiment, do a little sample, see what you think. But this is what I use. This is all, I should have called this a no waste couture fabric because we're going to use all of these leftover scraps from your cutouts as the last petals. So I do this in two ways, and depending on the fabric and how it works, I kind of just play with it. So sometimes I will come along and I will distress the edges a little bit because I really like that soft, fluffy, edge. I don't like hard cut edges like this on the side. So that is one of my little trademarks or tricks, I can't talk today, that I do. And really, there is no rules for this one. Sometimes I'll start with a large piece of waste fabric like this, and I will literally just start to play with it. I might grab the pins and do a bit of fabric sculpting, acupuncture, as I call it, pin a bit in here. Generally, I don't pin too much because the pins get in the way and annoy me as I'm trying to sew. But I will sometimes in the auditioning process, look at this little bit sitting up there. I really like that. It looks like another little petal shape. So this bit here is too sharp. So just running my fingernails along that edge, getting it all nice and frayed and distressed looking. If you don't like this look, then that's fine. You don't have to do it for yours. It's just one of my things that I like to do. All right, and then I would kind of pin that there and pin that there. See, that's looking pretty good already. I'm looking for balance, I'm looking for harmony. And then if I'm not entirely happy with that, I'll take some smaller pieces and again, I'll distress the edges and then I'll just, if that needs a little bit more of a balance here, maybe here's another little corner bit, maybe I could put that here. You just literally keep auditioning and playing. See, I could bring this one down just because my printing is here and there's this empty part in the middle. I could bring this one down a little bit further in there, and I may well do that after I've stitched the first layer. So really, it's about experimenting and playing, um, and doing what feels right for you. So I am going to jump on over to Patreon now. So if you would like to watch me stitch this step by step, then you can join me on Patreon for that. But all I'm going to do is use a single thread of my Gutermann cotton, the same color match that we used here. I'm going to stitch down with a little anchoring stitch everywhere I feel it needs it. And then I've got a nice little selection here of some two different color seed beads, and some little sequins, and I might, anchor, or go back through and add a few little, embellishments just to add a little bit more sparkle, because I really can't help myself. It's not often I stitch or embroider without some beads or sequins. See, this had really nice little ones that matched and tied it in, to the leaves on this one. That's a better picture. You can see them there. On this one, what did I do? Ah, here you go. I used some little flat backs. Can you see that little Swarovski flat backs? And I cut some of the bullion lengths and stitched that in there as well. And you notice with the silk organza, you can't see them as much as you can with the net because this was denser. Actually, this has been quite flattened in my folder, but yeah, it was much puffier and fuller, and I didn't feel that one needed as much embellishment. And again, it depends on what colors. Have you got the perfect color sequins like I had for this one? I've got a bit of a purple bead to bring out the background. I've got a blue bead that's not an exact match, but should catch the light. So just use what you've got and experiment and have a play and see what you think. The other thing I thought I'd briefly talk about is creating buds. So these were all little flower elements that I had cut out, but I will often create a bud just from leftovers. Now these were two odd little shapes that came out of my waste fabric. So in fact, look at that one, there's another interesting. I'm just looking for shapes in there. So if I cut that off and cut that bit off, there's another really nice little thing that can be folded in half, gathered up, stitched on up here, and that would be the perfect way to make a bud. So what I have found is I'm looking for half completed little shapes. See, those two again will make a really nice little bud somewhere on this piece. So if you would like to watch step by step the next part, join me over on Patreon. And if not, enjoy, or let me swap cameras for a second. Enjoy your process, have some fun, play around, experiment. And remember, you can't go too wrong with this technique, because if you don't like what you stitch, undo it, reversing, I call it. Go beep, 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 and reverse out, take it, have another do, have another try. And just, take a breath and just let it flow. You really can't go too wrong with this one. So most of all, have fun, play, experiment. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye for now.